Boy, this Venturi here is version 2, and I will compare it to version 1, but look at that tiny little hole in there. Can you see? And then the intake valve was very small too. Here you can see it right there. Wow, that's tiny. But that alone with tubing did not work. I had to basically still put a valve cover on here with some waterproof tape there, or plumber's tape, so that I could control the air to get smaller bubbles yet. Now you got some bubbles with just that alone that were fairly small, but they were coalescing on the surface and they weren't microbubbles to the size that I was happy with. So let me pause this for a second and we'll give it a try. Okay, here we go. Let's give it a try. Here's the switch. Here we go. Not sure why it took a while. But you can see those are not really microbubbles, are they? Oh, now they're getting smaller. Why is that? Is that because it's on the bottom? I like that overall. However, there's quite a few microbubbles. Let's turn this valve here a little. Tighten it down just a bit more. Bubbles get smaller. See all these? Look at all those microbubbles. I don't know if you can see that, but there's just a bunch. Big bubbles coming up, but there's still a lot of microbubbles floating around down there. Okay. Again, version 2, I've tightened it down a little bit more. No coalescing on top. It's nice. Look at this. Pretty tiny bubbles, I would say. I mean, look at some of the mist over here and the just little tiny bubbles. I think it's working. Okay, I pretty much tightened version 2 down all the way, and you can see, oops, I think I need a clamp. I think you can see there's no coalescing of the bubbles, but that's about as fine as I can get it. That's just the first little burst. You get bigger bubbles. Got a lot of little bubbles. It's kind of sputtering now. Okay, version 2 again. This time I took it off the little switch here that was a hassle to try to hold, and now I can hold it better. And I got it all the way down and it actually stopped. So I've turned it just a tiny fraction up, and now, oh my gosh, those are what I call microbubbles. Well, at least I can't see any coalescing on the surface at all. Well, wait a second, maybe there's a little bit. See, there's still a little residual in the tube, but when I turn it, yeah, I guess there's just a little bit of larger bubbles, but I would say in general, that's not a bad result. Could I go a little smaller in the nozzle? I think it'd be worthwhile. I mean, if I bring it up too high, there's pretty good jet stream. No idea how much it's restricting the flow. It would be really neat if I could do some calculations without having to actually do flow experiments. But I mean, in general, let's face it, that's really nice small micro bubbles. I'm going to compare it to version 1. Hold on. Okay, before I move over to the fish tank that's clear, I thought I'd just put version 2 into the same black bin, maybe you can see just a little better with these kind of bubbles coming out. They are really tiny. They are really tiny. Version 2, I believe, has the tinier bubbles. I don't have this all the way closed. I can play around with the valve settings. Let me try that. So even if I loosen the valve, I still get much smaller bubbles. Now they're starting to pop like champagne on top and coalesce just a little bit as it's looser. I opened it up even further and I did start to get bigger bubbles, you know, when it was basically off. But in any regard, that smaller diameter definitely helps create smaller bubbles from what I'm seeing. Okay, I took this thing off. Here's what you get with no cover on there. Still nice bubbles. They're coalescing a little bit. Can you see that? I mean, I don't know if I could achieve that small bubbles, honestly, with version 1, but this is version 2. But let me go ahead and try. Okay, back to version 1 with the white tubing here. I'm definitely getting more flow, but I don't know if the bubbles are as micro. Try to turn it down just a tiny bit. Okay, I have it almost all the way down, this valve here. And this is version 1, and I'm getting pretty good bubbles. I don't think they're quite as small, of course. But they're pretty small and they're not coalescing really on top. I mean, there's a few champagne bubbles popping, of course. But yeah, it's hard to know. I think version 2 is probably still a little better in terms of microbubbles. The only bad thing with version 2 is the throat diameter is so darn tiny that, you know, anything can really get lodged in here, in that little hole there. I wonder if I can get a good picture. Man, that's tiny. It's a tiny little hole. And so the question is it worth having that tiny little hole for the little bit of marginal benefit? Or is it too risky that it will get clogged up and go unnoticed? Again, just another show of what's possible with version 2. I had to go and put a limiter on the top. But I mean, wow. You can see those bubbles coming out there. And they are pretty darn small. And they're not coalescing, they're so small. And they're being suspended for a long while, I believe. I believe the dissolved oxygen in this tank must be quite a bit higher than before.